This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
So why do seagulls live near the sea? Because if they live near the bay, they'd be bagels. Welcome to Wings and Things, where you'll find real answers to real questions about everything you want to know about pet birds. Care, feeding, bird products, travel, and more. Everything to make your frequent flyer a happy camper. From parrots to parakeets, cockatiels to cockatoos, you'll have a bird's eye view of everything there is to know about your fun, feathered friends. So, spread your wings and get ready to fly on Wings and Things.
Welcome to Wings and Things on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Robin Shwokas from the Leather Elves. We let Barbara have the week off. This week, I'm here with Karen Anderson of Avian Suites. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about boarding your bird. And so things like what to do when you have to go away and no one's home to watch your companion, and some options, but most of all, to plan ahead. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Sitting on a branch overlooking the parking lot, the pigeons watched as a Mercedes pulled in below them. "What do you think?" one bird said to the other. "Should we put a deposit on that car?" Stay perched. Wings and Things will be soaring back right after these messages.
What if you could protect the life of your cat with something so simple and affordable that you already use every day? Get ready for the evolution of kitty litter. It's Pretty Litter. Along with all the features you've come to expect from your kitty litter, Pretty Litter's patented and scientific formula will also monitor your cat's health and detect illnesses early while providing industry-leading odor control. 2 kitty litters, same cat, same price. But there's one important difference. Pretty Litter reacts to your cat's waste by detecting health issues simply by changing color. And the key is that Pretty Litter detects these issues before your cat shows symptoms of physical illness or pain, likely saving you major dollars in vet bills while protecting the health of your cat. What do you think, little guy? Ready to switch litter? Pretty Litter. Colorful insight into your cat's health.
Go to prettylittercats.com/cat101 or use coupon code CAT101 to get 20% off your first subscription order.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
A Frenchman walks into a bar with a parrot on his shoulder. The bartender asks, "Where did you get that thing?" The parrot replies, "In France. There are millions of them." Don't have a canary. Wings and Things is back.
Welcome back to Wings and Things on Pet Life Radio. My guest today is Karen Anderson of Avian Suites, and Karen was first a client, then an employee, and now the owner. What a progression. That's quite impressive. Karen's education, she has an ongoing education in avian care, including the University of Minnesota College of
Correct.
Veterinary Medicine, avian emergency and critical care conferences, workshops with Barbara Heidenreich and Susan Friedman, Parrot Festival in Houston, and AAV, and that's where we are. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you very much.
That's a pretty impressive ongoing process for you.
One of the things that we like to do, that we actually insist on at Avian Suites, is because we're going to be responsible for people's companion parrots, we feel that it is absolutely essential that we be as educated and as up to date as possible on various aspects of caring for the bird. So we try to get to as many of these things as we can afford.
That's really exciting, though, that there is that ongoing process. And, it can be, you can observe stressful or what behaviors that you would term stressful for both you and your parrot, when someone's going out of town and somebody else needs to care for them. And you have to be aware, I think, people need to know that there are options.
That's correct. It is not easy to find good care for avian species. It's just people hadn't thought about that. Typically, they'll have somebody come in and watch their parrot.
Right.
During their absence, and that's one of those things that you want to be very, very, very careful about, and as you said earlier, plan ahead.
Right, and personally, not the best housekeeper, and you got to clean the house before somebody comes to watch your bird. But it is true that whole plan ahead piece is so important. And I actually am vacationing this summer, and I know that for me it has been stressful what am I going to do with Nicky? Because he's the most important parrot on the planet.
Right.
And I'm sure everybody that comes to you feels that way.
They do.
And, I explored different options. I really looked at, what could I do? Would I have somebody come to the house? And that's really not my choice. I don't want to do that. And we can talk a little bit later about some of the pitfalls of having someone come to your house. I looked into, do I want to go with a veterinarian who does boarding? Do I want to go with, a center that does boarding? And it depends what meets your needs, and they all have pros and cons, I think.
They do. Some are more convenient than others, depending on the logistics of it. But I think the point is that you want to explore all your options long time before you have to make a decision.
Well, that's the key, and sometimes an emergency will come up, and I have to go out of town. I have a funeral, God forbid, and what am I going to do? I don't have the luxury at that point to say, oh, well, I could do this, I could do that, and you really need to have that plan, or a kit that you've got all your information too, I think is important.
We ask our clients when they come in, especially the first time, to bring as much information as possible about their bird or their birds. It helps us handle the birds better. It helps us understand what is going on with those birds and how to make them the most comfortable and again, the least amount of stress for the birds.
Right, and I think
is important.
We all got kind of sensitized or we became aware that we needed to have those emergency plans with September 11th. It was, people started being more, okay, I'm going to plan for this, I'm going to have something. And, in the house, a lot of people have emergency plans for evacuations and things like that. And it only makes sense that you need to add your bird to that whole plan.
My birds actually, on September 11th, when that tragedy happened, my birds were actually at Avian Suites. We had to be out of town for an extended period of time, and I was so fortunate because we had the capability to leave them there, and I didn't worry for 1 second about the birds.
Well, that's the key too. You don't want to be away, whether it be for business, for pleasure, and have to be stressing out about what's going on with my birds. I hope they're okay. So if you're going to hire someone to watch those birds in your home, what are the kind of things you need to worry about, Karen? What do you think?
Well, first of all, because we've heard a couple of horror stories about that, make sure that if you're going to have somebody come into your home and watch, take care of those birds there, that they have the commitment to do that. We heard one story from one fellow who hired his friend to come in and take care of his bird for a week and paid him a fair amount of money, and came home to find, fortunately, the bird was still alive, but nobody had been in to give the bird food or water or change, so that was pretty traumatic for everybody. But make sure that the person or persons have a commitment to come in and actually take care of the bird. Right. Second, and really, really just as important, make sure that those people have the training or the knowledge or whatever it takes to recognize any signs of problems. That's probably paramount. And the third thing, I think, is make sure that they can spend an appropriate amount of time with that bird.
Right.
It's one thing to have somebody come racing in, change the paper, clean up the water dish and dump some more food in. But African gray parrots and cockatoos and macaws and all of the birds, whether they're little or big, need a lot more interactive time than that, and you can really stress a bird out if you get somebody to come in for 20 minutes a day, and then for 23 hours and 40 minutes that bird's alone.
Right, absolutely. And I think you need to think of it in those terms, and it's got to be, maybe you think, okay, well, it's someone familiar, it's someone they know, but if you've done your job right, Avian Suites or wherever you take them is someone that they know as well.
Well, and it also helps if it's somebody that's actually able to handle the bird. We've had people come in and say, well, I used to have somebody come in and to the house and take care of the bird, but Jingles hates the person and will bite him or her, and so it's you question what kind of interaction that's going to be and what kind of an experience for the bird.
Right.
Some not preferred individual comes in. So.
It is tough, and I think too some training and enrichment can alleviate some of that stress, but it's still that's probably not the preferred method of what to do. And then, a wide variety of visual and auditory stimuli, I think, too, can help, with the birds when they're getting ready to move from one place to another, getting that, so it's almost a desensitization process.
Yes, it is. And you also want to find somebody or a place where the people are accustomed to dealing with new birds and birds that may be fearful or very stressed. At Avian Suites, the staff is used to handling lots of different birds, lots of different species of birds. Everybody that's there has multiple birds of their own, and so they're pretty used to getting new birds to come out of the cages. We like to have the birds come out of the cages during the day, and we have the opportunity to do that there and keep the birds active. And again, along those lines, you talked about enrichment. We encourage owners to bring the appropriate toys, the appropriate enrichment objects and things for the birds, because although we spend a lot of time with the birds, we can't be in each one of those rooms for hours at a time. Right. And so our interactions with the birds, although they're good, we like to see the birds have something to do when there's no human in the room.
And I think, too, that's the norm. Most people's birds are not with someone 24/7. So it is normal for that bird to have to, have things to do and things to stimulate itself when there isn't that human contact. And desensitization to new people. I think, you're working on your end to come at it from, we have training, we know what to do, we've worked with a variety of birds, but, you've got that bird that the owner tells you it'll only step up for me.
Yes, we actually, we have had birds come in like that, and sometimes, more often than not, we are able to work with the bird and get the bird to come and step up and come out, so we can weigh them and make sure that they're getting enough to eat and so forth and so on. But there's been the occasional bird that's been really, really difficult, and so it really is, it would be wonderful if all companion parrot owners would desensitize their birds and introduce them to new things and new people.
Sure. So there's a plug for Avian Suites. You take them to Avian Suites and you get back better birds than you brought in the first place.
We
nice.
We hope so. There are clients that say the birds like to come. They call it birdie camp.
Look at that.
So
I wish I lived where you are. I've decided I'm going to take my bird with me. That's my newest plan. And if you can do that, that's great too. But that transportation piece too is important. And you've got I've got Squeaky in this wonderful cage at home. It's gorgeous. It's huge, and he comes out and plays in my house. But I never take him anywhere else. And so, what do I do now when it's time to come to Avian Suites?
We have some clients who have difficulty getting their birds in and out of carriers. So you want to play those games with the birds. That if you have one of those birds, you want to make sure that bird is comfortable going in and out of a carrier. We have a number of clients who have extreme difficulty getting their birds into and out of the carriers, and so we will assist them with that. But it's a whole lot less stressful for the bird if you can play some positive reinforcement games with the birds to get them to go in the carriers and come out.
It's a great opportunity for you to do some positive reinforcement training, and it doesn't have to be, this huge chore. Barb and I have talked a number of times about how you just do that positive reinforcement and you get a little closer to the crate, and then it's a good thing. It's like, oh, look at that. I know that when I go in the crate, it's a positive thing for me.
I get a pistachio nut.
There you go. Yeah, I'd go in a crate for a pistachio nut.
One of my own grays had a lot of trouble. She was used to an acrylic carrier, and I got some different carriers, and so it was pretty interesting that how long it took a bird who was, in quotes, accustomed to carriers to accept that new carrier. She finally did, but it took a few sessions.
Yeah, and it does, and that goes with part of the planning. So
that's right.
I think we're going to take a break, Karen. and we will be right back after these messages.
Stay perched. Wings and Things will be soaring back right after these messages.
Put on a perfectly possum pet party. Having an awesome birthday or adoption day celebration for your four-legged friend? Or just want a fun excuse to throw a fun party with your friends from the dog park? Deck out your party with Molly and Bandit Pet Party accessories. Party products designed specifically for pets. There are wearables, including adjustable pet party hats, bow ties, and tutus. The photo prop kits include funny glasses and hats. The party supplies and decorations include coordinating table covers, party banners, cake decorations, and treat bowls, cups, and bags. Everything you need to create great memories and Instagram-worthy photos. They're available in 2 colorful themes, tropical and fireman. It's a dog's life. Celebrate it with Molly and Bandit Pet Party at mollyandbanditpetparty.com/petlife.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
A Frenchman walks into a bar with a parrot on his shoulder. The bartender asks, "Where did you get that thing?" The parrot replies, "In France. There are millions of them." Don't have a canary. Wings and Things is back.
Welcome back to Wings and Things on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Robin Shawokis, and I'm here today with Karen Anderson from Avian Suites. And we've been talking about, how to make it the easiest thing for your bird or the most comfortable situation for your bird, something that you've trained some of the behaviors ahead of time. You've planned, what you want to take for enrichment. And keeping just a log of maybe write down what a day for your bird is like.
We love to have people do that. That's probably the single most helpful thing that people can do for us is to write down what's your bird's typical day like. What's your bird's vocabulary?
Mm-hmm.
What are the foods that your bird likes the best?
Okay.
What kinds of things motivate the bird? How much time out of the cage does the bird spend every day? What's the bird's environment like at home? And when does he get up in the morning? When does he go to bed at night? So those are really important.
I think some of those things are things we take for granted. Okay, it's bedtime. How if they have a sleeping cage or if you cover whatever you do, you just do that as routine at home. But it may not be something, it wouldn't be something that someone that was boarding your bird would know about.
Right, and it doesn't hurt to help that. It doesn't hurt to have that information available anyway, because you can't always plan when you're going to need to put that bird someplace else. If you got sick, for example, we've had people call us in the middle of the night and say, my parent is very ill, I need to fly out of here right now, can I bring the bird?
Right.
And we've had people, there was one client who had a house fire and got the bird. The birds were fine, which was wonderful, but they had to be out of that house, and that client was it was really difficult because they didn't even have things they could bring,
right?
Because things were in the fire and they couldn't get them. So if you plan ahead a little bit, it really does help. But what we do then is we keep that profile in the bird's and client's chart, so that we don't have to keep asking you the same questions over and over.
And I think it's important too that if you, as an owner, if you are boarding your bird, even if you're boarding it at the same place all the time, that things do change. Squeaky might have loved X, Y, and Z, or this was the preferred reinforcement for a long time. Well, maybe that's changed. And to let the person that's boarding know that.
And it does change. And I think we've all seen our birds. Today they like one treat, and tomorrow they look at that treat and they'll pitch it as far as they can.
Sure.
And if it's an African gray, they can throw it pretty far. So.
Do you have that kind of space that's okay at Avian Suites?
Well, we have kinds of walls and floors that you can clean up pretty easily.
Excellent, and that's another thing. What when someone's looking for a place to board their bird, what's the instant absolutely not? When you go and you're investigating someplace, and definitely, if you're lucky enough to have several facilities in your area, check them all out. I think, But Karen, what would you say if you walked in somewhere? What would be the absolutely not for you?
That they should have?
If you walked in and said, I'm going to take my bird here, and you walked in the door and started talking to the folks there, what would be a red flag for you?
Okay, a red flag for me would be if they did not, for example, if the place did not look absolutely spotless. if the place, if there was any question in your mind, I also would be very careful of a place that housed many birds together, especially if they did not require, and I'm not saying suggest or, as an option, require extensive testing for disease. We don't require extensive testing for disease. We do suggest very strongly that you have the birds tested for psittacosis, but we don't require it because we basically have separate rooms for each bird's families of birds. So if you have a bird or two or three, all of your birds would go in one room. Okay. So and they don't get exposed to anybody else's birds. But if you're going to board your bird or birds in a facility that houses them together, that facility must require
I think that's
testing.
Really good information. And I've run across facilities that not only board birds, but they board other animals as well, and in the same room.
Yeah, we had a client. We've had more than one client actually come in and board with us as after they have had not a good experience with another facility. And I'm not saying that there's anything bad about the other facilities, but sometimes you cannot prevent some things from happening. And we have one client who comes in whose bird was attacked by a ferret in a facility that was similar to what you're talking about. And it's a good facility. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're going to put your birds there, then make sure that they are kept they're housed in separate rooms, and that other species can't get to your birds.
Right. I think that's crucial. So, Karen, let me just ask you a little bit about you. So, how did your passion for parrots begin?
Well, my grandmother raised canaries when I was a really, really small child, and I think I got love of just birds in general from Grandma. And then we had Petey the parakeet. It's actually, little Peter the budgie when we were growing up. And he was a marvelous little guy. He's just a regular old-fashioned green budgie, but had a huge vocabulary. And we had him for many years, given that our knowledge about birds, parrots, was pretty slim. In the old days when I was young. But anyway, after I was getting ready to leave the corporate world a number of years ago, and I got this was an impulse thing, I got a cockatiel. I knew nothing, literally, about any kinds of parrots. And I got this little cockatiel, and I didn't know if it was a male or female. And it turned out to be a female, and she laid eggs and removed any doubt at all, but she's a marvelous bird. She's about 14 now, and I got her when she's, maybe 12 weeks old, and that's what started it. She's, I'm fond of saying that's what started that was the start of all the trouble. And so then, not having enough trouble, I then acquired about a year and a half or so later, and I was starting to get a little more savvy. But I got an African gray, young bird, and I'm not going to go into that story because it embarrasses me somewhat. But
we all have those stories.
Yes, I ended up with a 9-week-old African gray, and this bird, I was told the bird was a male, and I was told that I'd only have to hand feed the bird for a month, and about 10 months later, and a couple trips to the vet, and managing not to have the bird aspirate any food or anything like that, I did have the bird DNA sexed, and the bird was already talking and was saying Earl, which we had named him, and went to the vet, had a DNA sexed, and it's now Earl the girl. And but they're wonderful. By this time, of course, I was starting to attend seminars and talking to some very knowledgeable parrot people in our area. And they were very helpful, and that's how it kind of all started. I have five parrots. I have 2 cockatiels, I have 2 grays, and I have a rose-breasted cockatoo. 3 of the 5 are rescues. The first 2 were purchased, and then the last 3 are rescues. And I got involved with Avian Sweets at first I was a client there. In fact, I was one of the very first clients when they opened 10 or so years ago. And then Patty Christie, who owned Avian Suites, she was the second owner, and she and I had gotten pretty friendly, and she knew that I was a pretty devoted bird owner, and she called me one day and said, "I have a business opportunity for you." And of course, I'm always interested in that.
Sure.
And I said, "Well, what's that?" And she said, "Well, how would you like to work here part time? I can't pay you anything, but you get a discount on the boarding." And I thought that was excellent.
That's okay.
So we did that, and I worked there for quite a few years now. And then last summer, about this time last summer, Patty took a different her dream bird job, and I decided to buy Avian Suites, and so now I'm responsible for all of this, and so it's wonderful. It's a kind of the opportunity of a lifetime. It's very different from what I did as a corporate person.
But look at how far you've come with it, just seeking out that information, and that's one of the things we talk about with people a lot. Is all this information is out there. You just need to go out and get it, and so you've gone from as a child the budgie to now having this fabulous facility where you board birds, and I think that it's so important that education piece comes in.
It is, and the only caveat I put on the education piece is be very careful where you get your information. There are some wonderful sources of information out there. There are also some really crummy books, and some. Be very careful of what you see on the web.
Right.
There are good programs such as this one. These are
Thank
wonderful.
you.
You're welcome. But be very careful, and look at it with a keep an open mind.
I think that's so important, and so the knowing what you're looking for. I want information on this, and being very aware that there are different opinions. Different approaches, and figuring what works best for you, I think, is important. But there are, just to get back to the boarding for a minute, if there are three things, the three important things that people need to find, if nothing else, we talked about the medical, so that's key, I think. But what else would you say when they're looking for a facility? Because we can't all come to Avian Suites.
Right. So you want to, if nothing, if you can't get any other medical information, make sure that your bird has a relationship with an avian veterinarian before you have to board it.
Right.
That's really important. We have a requirement that your bird or birds see an avian vet once a year, and it's not to make you spend money. What it is to make you do is to develop a relationship with an avian veterinarian, so that when your bird is at Avian Suites, or whoever's taking care of it, that person or those people can get hold of the vet who has seen your bird and is familiar with your bird and the bird's health. The next thing that you want to really be very careful about is that the people or the person, as I said earlier, has knowledge about birds, and it helps if they have a lot of some previous experience dealing with parrots, and understands how smart they are and how easily stressed they are, and things like that, and has at least an education. And I'm not necessarily talking about just reading a few books.
Right.
These people need to have gone to some workshops, and they need to have gone to seminars and things, so that they really do have some continuing education, and they need to have done this recently.
Right. The information does change,
Yes,
we've come
it
so
does.
far. We talk about that all the time, and you just need to make sure that they've got that information. And I think you can probably, if you're a savvy pet owner or parrot owner yourself, whether this is the kind of place you want to take your bird. You just talk and have that dialogue. We did a show, I don't know if you heard it, Karen, on avian veterinarians and being a participant versus a consumer in your pet's care. And I think it's the same with this.
It is absolutely the same. We suggest that people come in for tours. before they bring their parrot to us. We like that, especially because that gets the people understanding what kinds of things shall I bring for my bird. What's this place going to be like? What kind of a cage is Squeaky going to be in?
Sure.
What kinds of things do they have available? What do these people look like?
That's a big concern for me, the cage piece. Some places don't provide a cage. Nikki is in an obscenely large cage for a kite. Am I going to take it down and take it with me? No. But in looking for facilities, it's like, oh, we'll find a cage or we'll get a cage. And I said, that was part of how I got to the point that I'm going to take him with me. Because, I need to know that I've got this cage that's adequate for him, that he's not going in, a cockatiel cage or something significantly smaller than what he's used to. I know, nobody's going to set up the big giant cage for him. I know that. But I want it to be at least adequate.
Right, and so that's what your education as a consumer, to know what's adequate for your bird, and then you come for a tour. You go to the place for a tour and make sure that whoever is there and whatever they're going to provide will fit that bill for your bird.
Okay. Well, Karen, thank you so much. And now that we know what the gold standard is for boarding your bird,
thank you.
We're going to see franchises of Avian Suites everywhere, right? People should
I
contact
would love to
you.
do that.
But this is what you're looking for. And it really is helpful for people to know that they can comfortably put their bird somewhere and what to look for. So I'm just going to go through some upcoming events here. We've got October 11th, I will be at Long Island Parrot Society's Parrot Expo. Again, they have a great vendor room, and I'll be speaking on Enriching Your Parrots Live. November 8th through 9th, yeehaw, the Parrot Enrichment and Training Weekend in Austin, Texas. You can register for that at Good Bird Inc. And then way in the future, we've got the Best Parrot Conference in May of 2009 in Edison, New Jersey. And you can register for that now at www.bestparrotconference.com. And some websites for you to visit. You can go to Karen's site at birdboarding.com, Good Bird Inc., the Leather Elves, bestparrotconference.com, and check those out. And I've got an enrichment tip for the week. With regard to boarding, the boarding setting, make sure that you take enrichment items for your bird and specify how they're to be presented. At some places you bring in however long you're going to be. You're going to be gone 2 weeks, you bring in 10 items, and they all go in the first day. So you don't want to bring several items and have them all presented at once. This could be overwhelming. The bird's in a new setting. Make a list of how and when you would like your enrichment presented.
Absolutely.
Cool, thank you. So I think we're out of time at this point. We've got some upcoming topics we're working on. Body language, sexual behavior in parrots, teaching your parrot to play, and we'll be coming up with some others. And then if you've got any questions or suggestions for shows, you can contact us at robin@petliferadio.com or barbara@petliferadio.com. And if you'd like transcripts of the show, please visit www.petliferadio.com. And thank you again, Karen.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. And so we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Join us every week on Wings and Things and get a bird's eye view of everything there is to know about pet birds and how to make your frequent flyer a happy camper. Wings and Things, only on PetLifeRadio.com.